Hello, this is Tyler Richardson, Behavior Intervention Plan presentation. So this is my ABC chart for Max. Max was a little bit more difficult to make an ABC chart for, primarily just because of the lack of information from the video, as well as the lack of video evidence of what he was doing. So I kind of used some antecedents based on what his mom said, being asked to do something he doesn't want to or not getting what he wants. His behaviors, she described slamming cabinets and yelling. I saw that one in the kitchen. Slamming himself on the couch and stomping. Hits himself very hard, his mom said, in the head even, or hitting his mother and yelling at her or making loud noises at her. So the consequences of these actions are also the consequences of these actions. So he gets overheated, gets hot, but then tries to wrap himself in covers, makes itself worse. He also repeatedly is told no by his mom or to go in the video, and she tries to leave. So yeah. Behaviors and strategies. Max's primary behavior is that he hits and slams things. So the goal is to make him, or to get him not to do those things. He gets frustrated because of his lack of communication ability, so he takes it out on the things around him and on the people around him. Some antecedent modifications, trying to give him more choices in a situation. So if he's having to do homework that he doesn't want to do, giving him the option to do part of it now, part of it later, that might help reduce the occurrence of his triggers for him going off. Also visual cues to kind of help keep him on track. Replacement behaviors. Give Max a safe area to go when he feels like the situation has become too much. Maybe a room in specific that has something in him for stress relief, something he would like to do, something where he can learn to remove himself from the situation in order to cool down. The strategies for doing that: if he does remove himself, if he does make the right choice, he can choose a non-token reward from a choice board. And depending on how long the behavior goes, or depending on how often he chooses the better behavior, the rewards can be bigger or smaller. It could be time. And if you're working with Max, it would be important to remind him of his options, to remind him that he can go to his safe space, to remind him of the rewards for doing what he's supposed to doing, remind him about what is expected as well. The stress items would be helpful here too. So crisis plan and data collection. So if he does escalate to the point where his behavior cannot be reduced, I think, and based on the video, the best thing to do is to remove yourself, because it seems that he will strike out at anyone and anything. So remove yourself. If there's anything that can be used as a weapon, remove that if possible. Of course, try to be as safe as you can with yourself and with others. After the situation is resolved, so after Max has calmed down, you can debrief with him about maybe why it happened. I know he has limited communication abilities, but this would be part of where you would have a choice board, or maybe even a sounding board for him where he could choose the pictures or show the things of why he's upset, and then you can revisit that and kind of address it. Data collection. I think the best thing would be to fill out an ABC chart weekly. Fill it out daily and then visit it weekly, just to see when, where, how the triggers are happening. That way you can kind of address them with the group. If you're working with an SE teacher, taking the data daily over the course of a week. That way you can influence rewards and expectations, like Max makes the right choice and removes himself from a situation X number of times, or Max calms down without needing to remove himself. And then depending on how he's doing, you can increase how many times he has to do that, or how few times in order to get rewards, or what options he has for reward. Then for training for the other people and monitoring, after the initial week of collections, which is just basically pure observation with minimal intervention, get together with a group, including the parents, including the SE, anybody who's going to be working with Max, and kind of go over what the expectations are, going over how to give him his options, how to remind him of his options, how to remind him to use his safe space, how to remind him of his rewards. Anybody who comes into contact with Max should go through this training, whether it's a para or another teacher who might work with him for a short amount of time. Any administration should go through this so that they know and understand what the expectations are for Max and how to deal with Max's behavior. It is an ongoing process, so revisiting this continually on a monthly basis would probably be recommended to see what is working, what is not working, and kind of going from there. So 2 therapy models that I researched and kind of learned about for this. One of them was medical marijuana, and I actually honestly think that it might be beneficial for Max in this case. One of the interesting facts about medical marijuana, behavioral outbreaks are improved in 61% of patients in a particular study, of course. Behavior problems reduced, anxiety, stress, disruptive behavior all reduced. Anxiety, stress, and disruptive behavior are all things, and communication problems are all things that affect Max. And so if there can be an improvement in those situations, I think medical marijuana would be really good for that. Overall as well, positive outcomes in another study were reported for 15 patients that followed the rules and followed the expectations of what to take and how to take it and how much to take. And that improved behavioral crises, which I see as part of Max's behavior, is the behavioral crises where he gets so upset that he overheats and covers himself with a blanket. So I think the medical marijuana could also help with that. Also, communication and social interaction, both things that affect Max. So I just think that this is something that his parents could look into, and I think could definitely be beneficial. Of course, it's always being tested, but the evidence supports basically an ASD individual like Max benefiting from medical marijuana. And then the second thing I think would benefit him, I kind of talked about in his BIP, was choice boards, because it gives visual representations of his needs and expectations. This is also like a visual board for him so that he can maybe help communicate what he's needing. But with limited communication skills, choice boards are very helpful. I've used them with students in my classrooms. We have little cards on a keychain for some of our ASD students, and we can show them the card, like sit down or it's time for lunch, etc. And we can build those skills through the use of the choice boards. Good reminders of his expectations, good for Max because he has limited communication skills, and again, used in conjunction with his BIP to provide his reinforcement, so things that you can let him choose, as well as, do this much to get this reward, do this much to get this reward, that kind of stuff. Social story for Max. I mean, we could watch it if we really want to, but I don't think I can have a YouTube video on a YouTube video. But this focuses on not hitting people, which is one of his predominant issues. And it focuses on how it makes other people feel. So the goal of this would maybe get Max to think about hitting before he does it because of how it would affect others. I think this kind of social story would be really good for him. And then resources for people involved with Max, National Autism Association, just lots of good information. And one thing I thought was really good in particular for Max's mom would be support groups that she can search up. And then another one is My Autism Team, is a social network for families with autism or ASD. And I think that would be beneficial for his mom as well, to reach out to other families and other parents to kind of get some emotional support, because I think she definitely needs that based on the video. And then to help with the BIP Autism Now, just the latest research in regards to autism spectrum disorder, anything that can be helpful for future implementation. And then this applied behavior analysis programs is just a list of strategies that people can use, and maybe you could try to implement with Max, easily digestible. So yeah, that's my behavior intervention plan presentation. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.